All right. So we're back. Hi, Guillermo.
Hey man, welcome back, guys.
So now we're going to take a look at more things about Houdini, and again we're going slow. So last session we talked about points, right? So we are going to do something practical today. We are going to copy an object and spawn it into points, and we are going to randomize that object between different objects and also different size and rotation, which is pretty common. So let me open this. So what we saw before is like we have points, we have um, we have vertices, okay, points, verts, primitive, and detail.
hmm
So remember that Houdini has this one is special because a point can be anything, right? It doesn't
Okay.
necessarily is attached to a geometry. It's only a point that exists in the 3D space.
It
Like,
can be anything. It can be everywhere too, right? Yeah. Okay.
yeah, it can be anything, it can be everywhere. It can have color, it can have attributes, it can has a lot of things. So most of the times when we work in Houdini, especially when we want to scatter objects, we want to manipulate points, not primitive, because they are easy. We just need to move them, spawn them, delete them, select them, and we don't have to worry about the vertices of the object, right? So we're going to take a look at points. So I'm going to create a geometry node, press tab, geometry, and I'm going to create a grid. First, I'm going to make use of this space better, because we don't really need to see that much of the 3D viewport. And I'm going to tap here and click split plane top to bottom, and then I'm gonna put the geometry tab, which should be one of those. Yeah, inspectors, geometry spreadsheet. If you're using another version of Houdini, the menu may look different, but anyway, it's easy to find. Just find geometry spreadsheet. Those two are like super important. At least for me, like always watch this one to see if there is any error, because here in the viewport it's hard to see what's going on. So we're going to create a grid. Okay. So the grid is too small and I want to zoom in. So if I want to zoom in, just press space and F and it will zoom into the object. Also, if you have many objects, space G also works. One of those is for like all the objects, and one of it is for just one object you are selected. So just play with it. And if I click here, I can see the points, right? I'm not sure if you can see it clearly.
Yeah.
Okay. So one of each point has a number, right? And it goes from 0 to 99 because the size of my grid is by 10 by 10. If I click here in points, I see that if I order by the latest number is 99. I start from 0, so it goes from 1 to 100, right?
hmm
Because programmers like to start with 0 everything, right? So Houdini is the same. Now, what we want, this can be anything, right? This can be a terrain. This can be an object. This can be basically anything we want. So what we're gonna do is to spawn objects here. So how we do that? We saw that in the latest video that we have copy points. So we're going to create a box. We're going to put it here. And for those, if you're wondering like, hey, I want to make some pretty things in Houdini, it's like, this is the same. Because in Houdini, right now we have a box, but then we can change it for another mesh. And because the logic is the same, we don't need to do the work all over again. So I'm going to click here to see the size of the box, and I feel it's a little bit big. So I'm going to scale it down. Okay.
That purple indicator was just to show the outline, right? If you click on the right side of that box, it shows you it marks that object as the final output, right?
Yeah, the final output always shows in blue.
Mm-hmm.
And this one means template. Template means like you can see it, but it's not the output.
Right. Okay.
Useful when you want to see two things, especially like the grid in comparison to this one.
Mm-hmm.
Another shortcut very useful is like, I think it's W. With W you can
Yeah.
display it. And I'm not sure about this, let's try. I'm not sure if you can display several objects. Yeah, anything you press W will be displayed, and this has a different color. Actually, it's a little bit darker
Mm-hmm.
compared to the other one. So I'm not
All
sure
right.
which one is the bottom to permanently show it, but W does the trick. Okay, just be aware that just because you're previewing them, that doesn't mean that that's the final output. You don't want to export something empty, right?
Right. Right.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do is to copy the box into one of each of these points. So they can be 100 boxes. So what I will use is copy stamp. There are copy to points, copy stamp, and a lot of copies. Most of the times we will use these two. I read somewhere that copy stamp is no longer being supported. I'm not sure if that's true, but for now this is what we're gonna use because we are gonna use the stamp features. So we're gonna copy stamp, and then we are gonna click the box. The first one is the object we want to copy, and the second one is the points where we want the object to copy. So,
Mm-hmm.
so here it's lucky for us, the same thing about the same amount of vertices and the same amount of points are being spawned here, but that won't necessarily be the case, right? So right now, if we see the result, we have each box in each point and it's different. And that is because each point has a different number, and for each number is copying the box for each point, right? So far so good.
Yes. One question: is there any way to manually change the location of any point, or it's just automatic? For
We'll
example, oh
no,
yeah.
yeah, continue with your example.
For example, the point 0, can you move it to the middle? And I mean not just change numbers, but move it and leave its space empty there.
Okay, so yeah, you can, most of the things in Houdini, while you want to avoid manual things, you can have procedures to select some things in Houdini. And most of the work you will do in Houdini has to do with manipulate points, not much to do with manipulate meshes, but points.
Okay, I understand.
So if we can do many things, we can do the thing we did the last session, where was to select the points only in the up faces. We can select a random number of points. We can select by normal, right? So
Right.
it's up to you how you want to spawn the points. For now, we're only spawning here. Okay. Okay. So let me turn off this one. Like you see, we have a lot of points now, right? 700,
Yes.
and it's quite heavy actually. And the reason is we're not packing our geometry when we copy the points. And the reason you want to pack your geometry is mostly for performance reasons. And also to have a clean number of points. So if you see number of points here, we have 800 points. But if I click here on stamp and then pack geometry, you can see that I no longer see the points, and I have 100 points again, which is what I want. I have 100 points to manipulate.
Yes.
Okay, so what we're gonna do now is to put another model, say sphere. And let me press W, and I'm going to scale this, change the number of rows, okay, then change the uniform scale, something about that.
All right.
And then the question is, how do we spawn two objects, right? We have the sphere and we want the box. If I put the sphere here, only the spheres are showing. If I put the box, only the box are showing. So what we're gonna do is to use a new node we haven't seen yet, I believe, called switch. Okay, so the switch node, if I put it here, the first input is for our box. And then if I drag the sphere to the second input, which remember starts from 0, and I will see the sphere. So if I change the input, I can see the spheres, and if I go to 0, I see the box. Okay? So far so good.
Yes, everything clear.
Now the problem we have is that we want to change the input based on a random point on our points here. Alright?
Right.
We want to have some spheres, and we want to have some boxes. So we are going to use the stamp. And before using the stamp input here, I'm going to show you here how the stamp works. So the stamp, you can look it as a fabric. You know, we package our objects, right? So Houdini is like a machine where, let's say, this is the claw, and this is the box. This is our package object, and this is for point
All right.
0. This is for point 1. 2, etc. Right? And they're
Okay.
like in this assembly machine where they are all being assembled, right?
Mm-hmm.
Actually, this one doesn't make sense. Let me put a stamp here. Like a machine that stamps objects, right? And
Okay.
each one of them has a specific stamp. For example, this is chocolate.
Mm-hmm.
This is, I don't know, toys. This is bricks. Okay, so each one of them will be stamped, and then the machine goes here, and you will have toys, and then the machine goes here. So it's like a signature for each point to make it unique,
Right.
right? So what we have here is, let's say we have all boxes, but not all boxes are exactly equal. The Each box has a unique ID, which is the stamp input, right?
Hmm.
So the stamp for our case would be, let's say, a model ID
All right.
or any model. So
Hmm.
the model ID uh, will be 0 or 1. If it's 0, we spawn a box. If it's 1, we spawn a circle. If it's 0 again, we spawn a box. If it's 0, sorry, a box. If it's 0 again, we spawn a box. If it's 1, we spawn a circle, and so on,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because our switch determines if it's 0, we spawn a box, and if it's 1, we spawn a circle. Well, a sphere, right?
Yeah.
Is it
Yeah.
clear?
Yeah. Very clear.
Okay.
Keep going, please.
Okay. So I wanted to show that before going to Houdini. So what I have
Mm-hmm.
here in copy stamp is a stamp input. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So if I click here, nothing happens, and I want to put my variable here. I can put any name here, but I don't know. Let's say we want to put model. Okay.
All right.
The name is model. Each time a box has a model, and it has a variable, right? So we are going to use a little bit of code. Uh, Trust me, it will get better, but it's actually very simple operation, right? So
Very simple.
yeah, we're going to put run, which stands for random. And then
Mm-hmm.
if you click here, you will have a description of how the function works, right? Trust me, this random expression is very common in Houdini, and
Mm-hmm.
I will get into expressions later on. Like really, expressions for artists is like the thing that I've been looking forward, because I have a little cheat that I can remember all the expressions without actually knowing exactly what they do. But for now,
All right.
just trust me. So random, what it does is it creates a random value between 0 and 1. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and what we want to put is dollar $PT. What dollar $PT is the number of point that we have here. If we check the points here, each point has a number. Each number will have a different value between 0 and 1. So right now you see it's like 0.74, right?
Mm-hmm.
And nothing happens because we haven't told Houdini that we want to use our stamp input here. And you know, Houdini works in like a waterfall model where everything in the up cannot be connected to the down, something like that, because we don't have this
All
information,
right.
right? This one
Mm-hmm,
didn't
mm-hmm,
exist here in this moment. We haven't created this, but stamps are different. So what we're gonna do is to type another expression, which is stamp, and then I'm gonna put the path, and if you click like this, you will have your this dot dot slash means we are in this network. Okay, if we
mm-hmm.
were go deeper into the network, we will need to add another dot dot slash, right? We're going back like
Oh.
geometry 1,
Mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm.
We're going back, but because we are using the nodes in this network, we're only use 1. So you don't need to remember the things you need to write because Houdini already knows which nodes you're using, and we're using the copy 1, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then we're gonna close this and we're gonna put our stamp name, which is model. Basically, is get the stamp of this node and give me the value of this, and then a default value if nothing is found. Okay,
Hmm.
so again, this is the stamp node, which is this one. A good thing about Houdini is like if I change the name, like if I just say copy models, you don't need to change the code. Like
Sweet.
it
All right.
recognizes that the node has changed and everything is linked. So here is looking for this model, this stamp input, okay,
Mm-hmm.
and it's looking
All
for a
right.
variable, right?
All right.
And the variable is model, and then 0 is in case you don't find anything, just put 0, okay?
And 0 is a square, right?
0 means a square in this context, but if I
Mm-hmm.
change the order of the switch, if I put the sphere first, you see that the nodes have changed.
Right. Mm-hmm.
It's because I changed the order of the inputs.
What happens if you add an extra one?
Let's
Do
see.
you need to also specify it, or?
Let's see. So I have my tooth. Let me see. Change the scale. Maybe make it obvious. Very tall.
All right. Yeah.
And polygon. Okay. So let's put it here. And you see that nothing has happened, right?
Right.
The reason is random only give a value between 0 and 1. And we
Mm-hmm.
now have more than 2 inputs. Now we have a value, we need a value of 0, 1, or 2,
Mm-hmm.
right? So how we fix that? In code, there are many ways to fix this. You can use a fit that will ram the values between 0 and 1 and put the new values. Like if it's, let's say the new values you want to be 5, the maximum 5,
Mm-hmm.
and it finds 1, it will change the value from 1 to 5. But I find that doing this works. So we want to multiply by the number of inputs, which is 3. Okay?
All right. Mhm.
And you can see that the models have flipped. And you can change this. If I multiply by 2, I kind of get some uniform, uh, let's say, distribution. And so what it is now, okay, number 2. I multiply by 2, and of course the number will be higher, and I have a higher chance to get number 2 in the input, right?
Right, but why is the tube now laying down? Why is it not standing up like before? What happened there?
The reason is we haven't set the normals for the points,
All right.
and I believe there's many ways to do that. I can attribute create. I can create an attribute, and I call this normal, and I can put the normal as a vector changing up. Okay, now I have my normals.
Right, nice.
Okay, so let's just leave it like that. I won't touch this part yet, but for now, let's continue. There is a problem. If I want to keep adding, let's say I want to add a torus, right? I don't see the torus. I'm gonna okay, gonna do this. Change the scale, and yeah. So what you do here, of course, multiply by 3. And now we see the torus, right?
Yeah.
Let me cap this too, man. Drive me crazy. Okay, so there is a pattern here, and if we use a little bit of math, okay, nothing crazy, we're just multiplying. The number of this number is the number of inputs minus 1, right?
Hmm.
And in Houdini,
Yes.
we know a way to get the number of inputs of any specific node. So what we're gonna do is delete this, and now we're multiplying. I believe it's OPT n inputs. I think it's that. Maybe not. But I knew this was gonna happen. So I have my iPad here. Let me check my code. Yeah, OPN inputs. Okay, so OPN inputs, and then I will put the node here, which again Houdini recognizes. I'm gonna put the switch,
Switch one.
and then I'm gonna close the comma, then close this one, and now we're multiplying. But we're multiplying by 4. We want to multiply by 3. And the way we do that is we put another parenthesis here, and we're going to put minus 1. Make sense?
Yeah.
So we're
Yeah.
getting the number of inputs that this node has, and then whatever the result is, in this case is 4, minus 1 equals 3, right?
Mm.
Don't die, don't leave me. I promise this is as hard as this is gonna get today. And
So
yeah,
there is no way to automatically get all of the inputs, right? You always need to adjust it.
no, now it's automatic.
Mm.
Because if I delete this one,
Um, hmm.
everything stays in place.
Ah, sweet. All
Yeah,
right, I get it.
because now if I add another one, it will work because the number of inputs will change,
Hmm.
and so will the result here. It's
Great,
the
that's
same thing
great.
we did manually, but we're using this get number of inputs, which is pretty handy.
Mhm.
Okay.
Saves you time, especially if you're constantly editing, right?
Yeah.
Your project.
And
Cool.
this setup, like, may think like, at first, yeah, it's gonna be a little bit hard to remember all these steps. As you practice, it's gonna get easier, and you won't just think you will just do it this way. And you can save these codes into a notepad or anything to remember what they do.
Hmm.
Because the way I look for them is not because I know a lot of code or anything. It's just that I googled it, and the people in Houdini forums, or well, most of the time you will find the answer in any kind of Houdini forum. Most of them are programmers, not normal people like us, right?
Right. Yeah.
So they love to code, and they sometimes you will find like super hard solutions. Like, especially this happens to
Mhm.
artists. Like, hey, I want to copy this point. It's like, no worries, just copy all this line of code and this will work. It's like, okay, going back to Max. It's not for me,
Yeah.
not for me. But when you find something that it works for them, you copy it, you save it, and you use it. And normally, if you're doing this alone, like you will need to find, is there a way to get a number of inputs? And you will find the answer, right? So
Hmm. Right.
the other thing is that this is so common that it will worth saving. It's like, okay, it's a little bit heavy here, but in any case, I need to do, do it only once. So who cares?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Now, what I want to do is to randomize the objects. Remember here, we have the number of points, right?
Hmm.
And they are in order, right? From 0, 9, 10, etc., right?
Right.
What I want to do is randomize the the number. So if the
Random
number
point.
changes, so does the object here.
Hmm.
So what I want to do is use a new node we haven't seen yet called sort. And what this does is change the numbers based on any rule we have here. For example, by x, you will see that
Hmm.
it starts from the x and it will go higher and higher and higher, right? By y, by z, etc. But what we want is to put a random,
Hmm.
right? And now all the points are random, okay?
All right.
And if I change the seed, I also change the points. And you see here down that the point is changing, right?
Hmm.
It's great. This is what we want. So if we look here, I'm gonna put this tube a little bit smaller. Too evident. Okay. So if I change the sort, we're also changing the spawning of the objects.
Hmm.
right?
I see that on the bottom there's a button that says primitive sort. So if you connect that node to the switch, you can do the same, or
Which one?
what is it for? Primitive sort, right below the slider you were moving on top.
Yeah, I believe
Primitive
that
sort.
I haven't used that one yet, but
Hmm.
it looks like it can change the primitive number here. Let's check. So we have the number of primitive. Yeah, it changed the primitive sort by random. You can change the
All right.
primitive too, if that's the case you want. Sometimes you want to use primitives, sometimes you don't.
Gotcha. All right, it's good to know.
Yeah. Okay. So the good thing about this is that we are using ugly objects to test, but this will work with any object. So what I can do, if I want to bring some models into Houdini, I can tap File. Okay.
Hmm.
And what this file node asks is for a geometry that I have put here. And I have some files from Quixel. So let's see, we want to use the, I don't know, this one. And
Right.
let's just change the box here to put this one. Okay. And the reason we don't see anything is because it's super big. Okay. So what I want to do here, first I'm going to put it up, so I can see it easily here. What I want to do is to change the size. How to do that? We're going to put a transform node here. Okay. And we're gonna change the uniform scale. Looks like I'm spawning a lot of. Yeah, it's okay. So I have two options. I either make this one big or the other one bigger. So let's try both. Okay, let's see how it looks like now. Okay, better. Let's just keep transforming the object. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a rock here. And if I see the objects, now all of them are too small. So let me change this. Okay. Now, there is a problem here. They are all facing the same rotation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if we want to scatter them in a natural way, we need to use what Houdini calls attribute randomize. Okay?
We need to randomize the points or just turn them, right? Are you going to do that, or what does that note?
We're going to randomize the normal of the point.
Mm-hmm.
So here, to attribute randomize, and for default is the color, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it's black for some reason, maybe because of this one. Yeah, because of the normals are 0. Okay, whatever. So I want to randomize the points here, and I want to randomize the normal. And by default, you see that it's doing something.
Yeah.
So I have 3 values. If I want to randomize along, if I don't want to randomize along y, I just put 0 here, and I can just change it, right?
Yeah.
The more extremes my values, looks like it's only randomizing in the same direction, right? Well, some of them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this one looks
There we
good.
go.
Okay. And the cool thing about this is that it will work if we change all the objects. So what I want to do now is to not spawn on a grid, but spawn on the surface of an object. Okay?
All right.
So what I'm gonna do that is to put a file here. Let's put a rock. Let's find our cliff. And super big, of course. We're gonna transform this. Okay. We're gonna scale it down. How big we want this to be? Maybe something like this. Okay, we're gonna take a look at this for a moment. Okay, what I want to do is to create, first I want to select the primitive that are facing up. Okay,
Right.
so we did that before. We're going to create a group.
One quick question. That rock has 1,000,000 points. Is there any way to randomly reduce them and to
It,
just spawn from some?
yeah, because we are going to use the scatter node, we don't really need to care about how many points we have.
Oh, okay, okay.
Because
In that node, you can just choose.
yeah, like
Okay.
I said, when you import an object, you have the points and the vertices are in the same position, but that doesn't mean you can change the points without affecting the
Okay.
geometry. We can have the same amount of vertices in the same position, but we can change the points because the points and the vertices are not attached.
Right.
Okay, so I'm gonna call this group up vector, and like we did before, keep my normals, change the y-axis, and I'm gonna choose points. I'm gonna reduce my spread angle. Okay, this looks good.
Nice.
Okay, so I have this group, but I don't want to. I want to have control of how many points I want to spawn. Okay, so what I will do is to put the scatter node. And if did we see the scatter node before? Yeah, we did. So the scatter node, what it does is, let me change the number here. Right now I have 20 points, 18. So I put it here, and now I have points all over my mesh, right?
Right.
If I increase it, I increase the number of points. If I decrease it, I decrease the number of points. But what we want is to only use the group we created here, this group master. You can see here the group up vector.
Yeah.
We only want to use that. So we want to put here in group Oh, sorry, we needed to use the primitive. Okay, there you go. Up vector. Just in case you
Hmm.
didn't see it, I just choose primitive here instead of points. Because the scatter asks for primitive to spawn. Right? Instead of choosing the points, I'm just choosing the primitive.
Yeah.
If I choose the points, I select the points. If I choose the primitive, I will select the primitive. Okay?
Right. Okay.
So now I want to scatter only using the up vector. And there you go. It works. If I choose this, you will see that
Hmm.
my points are only being scattered here. And I can increase
Right.
the number of points. Okay?
That is very useful. Okay. It gives you a little more control. I like it. All right.
Yep. So what we're gonna do is to replace this grid for this one. And very easy. We just click here. And now if I check my points, you see that my objects are spawning here, right?
Hmm.
But I only see the objects, right?
Right. Right.
I don't see the cliff. So I will do is put a merge node here so I can visualize. I put the merge node here on this one. And also I will pack this object so I don't see the primitive here.
Now, if
Oh,
you only
I
had
should only
a
pack here after transform.
hmm.
And then,
Why after transform and not before?
because if I put it here, it's super big.
Ah, right. Just call it down.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
So now I have my merge node here. And let's do something very quick. Let's change these ones for some models I have here. Have like plants 3D.
Yeah. Instead of donuts and whatever.
Yeah.
Yes.
A cool thing you can do is like if this scale works for you, you can right click action create reference copy. And what it does is it will have the same amount of values as the other one. So you don't
Hmm.
have to put it
Okay.
again. I'm not sure if this is gonna work. Ooh, what happened? Oh, we don't want this one.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's put another one. Let's try to find another plant, or maybe, yeah, another plant is okay. So let's just choose variation 6. Thank you, Quixel. So you can Control C, Control B. Let's delete this one. So let's just delete this one. Let's keep with 3. And again, it will work with what we have.
Hmm.
Okay. So if I change the scale here, all the objects will scale too because they are copies. And also,
Right.
if I don't want a particular scale of an object, like let's say this one is too small, I can scale it manually. Okay.
All right. That's cool. Hmm.
So it's very strange. And now, uh, you see that the plants have colors, and the reason is they are using vertex color. If you don't want to display it, we can delete it. Attribute delete. And what we have here, if we see the plant, vertex attributes, you have alpha, you have color, uncheck color, when you're done, you can uncheck any attribute you want. Most FBX files, we have like UVs, material, all the information you need. But if you don't want to preview it here, you can just delete them. Okay, so I'm gonna do the same here. So in fact, I'm gonna create a reference copy so you can remember how to do it. Right click, action, create reference copy. And I'm gonna put it here. So both files. Now both files use the same attributes. If I decide I want to delete another attribute here, or I want to release the color, my plants here will also have the color here. So it's very handy to create
Yeah.
reference copies. Okay. Then maybe we can scale this one. Okay. Now I have something. The cool thing about this is that we can change this file for another thing. Like we can choose another rock if you want. Let's say which one I use. Maybe this one.
So since it is already configured by the transform, it will only pick the surface, right? The upper surface.
Yeah, it's like
That's
having to think about procedures instead of once you do it once, you can't like do it all over again. The rock is too small, so I'm going to transform this. You see?
nice.
I have my objects here, and we haven't dealt about the scale yet or things like that. We're gonna cover that later. But yeah, I mean, you can see how useful this is.
Yeah, especially in bigger terrains, right? In something that is way bigger than a rock.
Yeah. For some reason, my objects are not spawning anymore. That's so weird. Must have messed up something here. Yeah, they're not spawning. Let me check real quick. Oh, they are. It's just that they're too small.
They're very small.
Let's change the size here. Yeah, I guess messing with the size of the object here. Good thing is that all our objects follow the reference of this one.
That's very useful. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, the more objects you have and the more variations, the better it will look. So, I think that's about it for today. We have covered a lot. We check how to manipulate points. We check how the stamp input works. Check stamp inputs. Put the stamp name here. Use the stamp in another way. Right? So,
Yeah.
actually, let me try something real quick. that doesn't work, it's like, fuck it. Okay, so it works. So what I want to do is to randomize the scale. Right now, before it's like this, right? So what I did is attribute randomize, and I want to put a p scale. It stands for point scale. Like I mentioned to you before, the points can have any attribute. And now this is the scale attribute. So if I want to randomize the scale, I just want to create an attribute randomize, and I can change the mean value, and I can change the max value.
Oh, I see.
And it will, now we have different scales for different objects.
That looks way better.
Yeah. And here maybe we can randomize this more. Maybe some tilt.
Yeah, at the end, like you said, it was a worthy wait for the when we were coding and just waiting for things to happen. It was all worth it since everything just updates automatically. It's great.
Yeah, it looks like a super tedious process, and that's why people like don't want to
Stay
use
away from it,
Houdini.
right?
Yeah, it's like, hey, I can do this faster manually. Yes, but you
Mm-hmm.
can do it only once. What if you need to
Yeah.
change something? What if you need to do it again? What if you're doing
Mm-hmm.
it with another model? You need to replace everything, right?
Right.
And again, the scatter node, we can change the number of scatter points, 0 or 1. I guess you can have 0 here, just only one planet alone,
Mm-hmm. There's just one.
which is ridiculous, right? Why would you want to scatter something to only have one? But as you can see, like it can update a lot of things,
Mm-hmm.
and we're only using like 3 objects. We can put more here. It will look better, more random. Okay.
All right.
And also you can change the spread angle. Like super handy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right.
Any question? I know it was a
Nothing.
lot to process.
A lot of yes, a lot. It was great though, especially seeing the end result. That's very cool.
Yeah, and again, this is this is very common. This is very
Mm-hmm.
common. You copying points, randomizing values, randomizing objects. You only need to do this once. If you want to put a terrain, just change the rock for a terrain. Right? And we can put more things, more complex stuff when we say more rules. Like we can scatter objects in a group to make it look more natural. Uh, let's just take it a step by step. But for now, I think this was a like a complete lesson to copy. Now you can
Mm.
know what kind of things you can use with copy.
It was a good example. Yeah, I like it.
All
I'll
right.
definitely be testing more later.
Yeah. Again, this is not hard. The first time maybe a little bit confusing, but
Mhm.
after doing it several times, it will become second nature.
Right.
And if you forget the code, copy the code. You don't need to remember everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for
So
joining us.
yeah, if you have any questions, let us know in the comments. Anything specific you want to learn, we can cover that. And yeah, until next time.
Yes.